I'm live. How interesting. I'm finding this hard to believe, but I hope I hope they're right that I'm live. And then we have to see if anybody comes in here. Okay, we've got 27 seconds, and there's one person, that would be me. I guess I'll give it a like, right? No? Okay, if anybody's here with me, please type into the chat and let me know, because this is the first time I've done this. And it's not easy the first time. I'm sure it's pretty easy, but not the first time. I'm very spoiled by um, a couple of years ago, the Blab, where all you had to do was sign into Twitter and go to Blab, and you just pushed a button, and that was it. Um, I did not think that YouTube Live would be this difficult. If anyone's in here, let me know. Okay, so Karen, sort of, watching from the TV. Okay, so if you found it, I'm hoping other people will be able to find it. Can't even talk. This has been really stressful. I was almost in tears about 5 minutes ago. Okay, so I wanted to do this live, and I'm hoping other people will find it, because I got an email, super tons of questions. I'm going to see if I can pull it up on my phone, or even just like remember it, maybe. One thing is, the puppy wanted to eat everything, everything, rocks, bark, dirt, anything that he could get his mouth on. And it sounded like he was like this, like, just a complete maniac. And I take the puppies out on the property here all the time, and they don't do that. They do pick up bark. They pick up big pieces of bark, and they carry it around. They pick up everything. Like, they pick up lots of things and they carry it around. I think it's really cute. Um, Another thing that I remember he said in the email is the puppy would not go to sleep, or was fussing in the crate. So I don't know, Karen. I know you're here. You texted me to let me know. Um, and I don't know whether I didn't hear from you that you had that problem. Um, I keep the one of the yellow puppies, the one of the girl yellow puppies over here in a crate, a small crate with a towel, and she fusses every once in a while, like if she wants to go out to go potty or whatever, but she usually just lays in there and she just watches me. Um, but if I have a puppy that is fussing a lot in the crate, first, it's like a baby. You make sure they don't need to be burped, which puppies don't need to be burped, but make sure they don't need to go to the bathroom. Make sure they're not like starving. But if you fed them, they're not going to be starving. And then you can actually like go over to the crate and kind of tap your hand against the door, and in a really authoritative way, say, "Be quiet, quiet." And usually they will just be quiet. Now, when I first bring a puppy home, if I bring a puppy home from another breeder, I'll put them in the smallest crate that I have, and I will put them on the nightstand next to where I sleep. And okay, so your puppy was fussing in Lindsay's room, but we put her downstairs and is fine. Gets up once per night. Okay, so my puppies are sleeping through the night, and I usually put them, and it's really important because I learned this last night. If I take them from the enclosure where they are, if they've been in there for a little while, and I bring them right in to go to bed, they try really hard not to go potty in the enclosure. You know, that enclosure that I had them in out there when you came here. And they will occasionally go when they really have to, but they try really hard not to. So it's really important to take them out of the enclosure and walk them around for a little bit before I put them in the crate. And if I do that, you know, around 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock or 11 o'clock, whenever I get back to the property, then they should be good to go to sleep and not have to go out until about 7. If they start crying earlier than that, then I need to get up, because usually, if one of them's crying, usually when they're crying, they already had the accident. But if one of them is crying, then they're getting the other ones all revved up. So I need to get down there and take care of it, like get them outside. But very often they sleep until about 7 and they don't fuss. So, oh, good. We have 2 people on here. So whoever else is on here, can you type in to the chat and let me know that you can hear me? And if you have any questions, Karen and Lindsay are watching from the TV, so they're not able to type. So Karen's texting me. So good thing I didn't try to use my phone for the live chat. Oh, now there's 3. So everybody who's on here, please let me know. Type into the chat. And hi, Beth. Okay, good. So type. Hi, Kat. Okay, so Kat, tell me some of the problems that you've been having with your puppy, because I got a long email and that's what inspired me to do this. I've never done a YouTube live before, and I did not think it would be this hard. So I'm pretty flustered. Like, I was almost ready to cry about 5 minutes before I managed to get it to work. So bear with me and just let me know what questions you have that I haven't answered. And I'm going to try to pull your email up. Okay, so I'm just going to try to go from memory here while I'm scrolling through. Somebody said that their puppy was not really wanting to come and not really wanting to, I think it was go potty in the backyard. So they were taking him out in the front, and then he didn't really want to come and he was sort of running towards the street. So that brings me to a really important point for everybody. And I've already talked to Lindsay about this, but you need to have a drag line on your puppy anytime, especially when they're in the front yard or, you know, where they can get out into traffic. You need to have a drag line on your puppy. People don't want to do that. It's a pain. You know, doing anything, I guess, is kind of a pain. But if you put a drag line or a leash, anything that you can go step on, because what you want to make sure you're doing right at the beginning is you never want to say to your puppy, come here, come on, puppy, come here. They usually will come at this age if you're clapping your hands and you have a really high voice, because that's what I've always done when I fed them. And so they're conditioned to that. But at some point, very quickly, they're going to test that and they're going to say to themselves, I don't want to come and I'm not going to come. And so if you have a drag line, you don't chase the puppy. You must not chase the puppy. You want to go over to the end of the drag line and step on it very calmly. And then you want to reach down and gently pull the puppy in. Or if the puppy doesn't get and just like plants their feet, then you can go over to the puppy. But you're getting the puppy without being frantic. And you're letting the puppy know that when you call them, they're not able to run away. So you're training them as you're going along by using that drag line. I'm still trying to pull up the email. So I see somebody else has joined us. Can you let me know who you are and if you have any questions? Maybe I can find out. I don't know. Will that work? Do you attach the drag line to the collar or a harness? Oh, I love that question. Let me tell you what I think of harnesses. Okay, so now I've got the email on my phone, but I need to put my glasses on to read it. Okay, I love the question about harnesses. The only reason that your dog should be wearing a harness is if they're going to be pulling a sled or you're going to be training them for protection sports. I know everybody and his brother is walking around with a harness. I don't know where that came from. I have no idea. 20 years ago, you did not see it ever. And then it started happening on little tiny dogs. People were putting harnesses on little tiny dogs. And the excuse was that that having a collar and a leash was somehow going to damage their throat. And I was like, that doesn't make any sense to me, but okay, I don't really have little dogs. I mean, I do now. I always have one little dog. And I have never, ever put a harness on. Okay, that was another someone who is not able to log in, but she's watching. Um, I've never put a harness on my little dogs, and I certainly have. The only dog I have that's ever had a harness on is Spanky, the Australian Kelpie, and that's because we were going to the Cascade Schutzhund Club down in Tumwater for about a year, and we were training for Schutzhund, which is a protection sport, and you put the harness on so that you can you have the harness and the leash, and you walk out, and the decoy comes out of the blind with his bullwhip, and he starts hopping around and cracking his whip and going ah ah ah. And the whole idea is you want the harness on so that you can hold the dog back while the dog is lunging at the and barking and being really excited at the decoy. Okay. You also use a harness when you want them to pull a sled. Harnesses encourage the dog to pull, number one, which you don't want. And number two, you need to have control of their head. When you pull back on the harness, it encourages them to pull forward. So all of us dog trainers that go on the dog training forums, we're always talking about this and rolling our eyes. Like it is the number one first sign of somebody who is completely clueless about training a dog. Does that make sense? You need to have a flat collar and a leash. And if you need to redirect your dog or take your dog a different direction, you need to be able to put pressure on their neck. You are not going to hurt your dog with a flat collar. You're not even going to hurt your dog with a pinch collar or a choke collar. You could hurt your dog with a choke collar if you were really getting like overly overly abusive or something like that. But none of you guys are going to do that. I don't like choke collars. I also don't like pinch collars to be used on a regular basis. If you're using them on a dog that's really aggressive, which you guys, this has nothing to do with our puppies, but if you're using them on a dog that has a lot of aggression, they can be effective, but they also are like pop beads. And if you really need them to work, they can pop off. I was working a German Shepherd one day, he wasn't really aggressive, but he wanted everyone to think he was. And that's a long story. But anyway, I was using a choke chain because I knew the pinch collar might pop off. And he was so strong, he actually broke the choke chain. I've never had that happen before. But anyway, back to the harnesses. Please don't use a harness on your Labrador Retriever because you're probably not going to train for protection or use them for sled dogs. Um, okay, so let me see if I can pull up this email. And I can't read it this way either because there's some new thing that they've done to the iPhone. Okay, so eating rocks and pebbles. Um, puppies do try to put everything in their mouth. If they get rocks and pebbles in their mouth, you need to take them out. Don't be afraid to give a little 2-finger and a thumb correction with the loose skin on the back of their neck and just say no, no. And you can take 1 finger and just tap on the side of their mouth after you get the rock out. Let them know that that really displeases you. And these dogs are so eager to please, they're going to quit doing it. When I leave the dogs in the enclosure, they have been eating some rocks. And I really hate that. I know they are because they're coming out the other end. If the rocks are the right size, they will get stuck in their stomach, and that will end up being a very expensive surgery. And you can only do the surgery like twice, I think. You have to check with a vet, but it can't be done over and over. So he chews on the pine cones and wood chips, and also sometimes grabs little pebbles in his mouth. So if he's on a leash, okay, I immediately force him to spit it out, which is what I would do. And then eating plums. Eating plums is fine, which I already said in a text back to you, as long as he doesn't eat the seeds. It's not okay to chew on pine cones or in wood chips. Yes, it is a hazard. What is the proper way to teach him no? So I think I already answered that. Everything has to be measured, and nothing ever. And I don't even need to say this to you guys, but I'm just going to say it anyway because I don't know if anybody's going to be watching this later. But everything needs to be very measured and very calculated, and nothing is ever done with any emotion. But it's okay to put on a little act, so you can give that two-fingered correction, and use your voice. And so chewing on the leash. So I just say no, and I give a little snap and release. No, snap and release. You guys, please type in your questions. Okay, he's had several accidents today. So thinking that we missed the signals, he gave a whimper. When in doubt, take them out. When in doubt, take them out. And I don't let my puppies run around the house at all. They're not old enough. That's like taking I don't know, a 2.5 or a 3-year-old and saying, "Here, you run around the house while I go to the store." They're not old enough. They need to be confined, and if they're not confined, you need to be totally 100% engaged with them, playing with them, playing tug, throwing things for them, talking to them, and being really just focused on them. Like, don't answer your phone and get lost on a phone call or something. So we've got 2 people here. So 3 people have bailed on me. I'm just trying to. So I hope I answered that question. Come back here. We want to make a big point to make that create a happy place. Yes, you do. And always give a treat when he goes in. He went back to crying. So that, I think that was the first night you had him, and he's not used to being alone in his crate. But and I don't know if you guys were on when I was talking about this, but it's okay to go over and say, quiet, quiet, and let them know you're not pleased about the fact that they're whining. And if they continue, then you can, tap the front of their crate and say, quiet. And if they don't respond to that, then you can open the crate and again give that calculated, measured 2-finger correction and say quiet. And I, with my puppies, that's all it's ever taken because I'm pretty good at putting on an act and um, letting people know, or letting the puppies know that I'm not at all pleased. I'm kind of, and I tell people, I joke about this, but um, there should only be one alpha in the house, or at least two alphas, mom and dad. Um, and the puppy should be the lowest one on the totem pole. We've been doing the 2-finger correction, but she doesn't seem to be getting it. How long do we keep doing it before we try another correction? So again, I'd have to see what you're doing. When I work with people, I watch what they're doing, and a lot of times they're not really bringing it. They're not really. When I tell a dog to do something, they know right away that I'm not kidding. Um, they so you have to fake it till you make it. Um, and you have to be kind of a biatch. Like I am, if someone tells me that I'm a biatch, I say, yes, I am. And I'm a little bit intimidating to the dogs, which is what I want to be. I don't want them to question whether I'm in charge or not. So the problem, and especially us girls, we girls have a problem with dogs because the guys, it's easier for the guys because they're bigger and taller and they have a deep voice. And the biggest thing I think about the guys is that from the minute they're walking or whatever, they learn that they need to be large and in charge, and they need to project a different energy. And we're taught, or we get it through osmosis or whatever, that we have to be so nice and we don't ever want to be mean, and we want everybody to like us and love us. And if you do that with the dog's going to totally take advantage of you. So it's a mental thing. And Karen, are you still here? Because I'm going to talk about you. um, anyway, so and it's not just Karen, it's everybody, and it's men and women too. So there's a point when we start the formal training of the dogs where the first thing we're teaching them is not to pull on the leash and to pay attention to their handler. And when the handler turns, the dog turns, and so on and so forth. And then usually the second session, we teach the place command: get up on something and stay, get up on something and stay. And that right there, with almost virtually everybody, especially us girls, but a lot of the majority of men too, just really have a hard time either getting the dog to get up on the place, which usually is a dog crate, or getting the dog to stay there. And I will take the dog and I'll do what I think is pretty much exactly the same thing that the other person is doing, but I walk to the crate, and once I grab the dog, I don't think of anything except what we're about to do. And I'm totally focused on it. And my body and my mind is so used to doing this that it's automatic. And I automatically shorten the leash. I automatically get ready to block the dog from going around this way around the crate. And I've got the leash short so they can't go around the other way. And I have the right amount of momentum that the dog knows that they have to get up on the crate. And a lot of times when we're doing that that training, we're using an electronic collar, but even without the electronic collar, because I've done it many times without the electronic collar, and just my action going towards the crate and my momentum and just all my body language, um, the dog just does it. And for other people, there's a thing that happens. Well, the dog doesn't do it for me, and he's probably not going to do it for me this time. And I don't really know why he's not going to do it. And all of that doubt and all of that energy is going right from you through the leash to the dog. The dog is reading everything. And so going back to your question, Beth, is you have to have an attitude. You have to have a certain attitude. And it doesn't mean you don't love your dog. I love my dogs. I love my dogs so much. My dogs sleep with me. I kiss my dogs on the lips. But when we're working, I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding around. You are going to do this. And it's important at higher levels of training. It's important to allow the dog to fail so that you can say, no, that's not what I meant. What I meant was for you to do this. So you allow them to fail and you get them to do it right. So I would have to kind of see what you're doing. Beth, not that I don't know, I do know. But a lot of times I'll say, this is what it looks like when you're doing it, and this is what it looks like when I'm doing it. So anyway, I hope that wasn't a very good answer. It's hard to answer that one. So I wanted to call this Canine Therapy, and I want to change the name of my channel actually to Canine Therapy because it's kind of a play off equine therapy, where a bunch of psychologists or psychiatrists or whatever have discovered that they can do a lot of therapeutic work by taking people, especially who aren't familiar with animals or horses, and take them out into a paddock or a field where there's 3 different horses that have no bridle, no nothing on, and have the person pick a horse. And they say that they can learn a lot about the person just by which horse they pick. And then the whole thing is they have to move the horse from one end of the field to the other without using any reins or halters or lead ropes or anything like that. And I think training dogs is kind of that same thing. So here's another, I'm just going to tell a little story about this. We're going down to Texas, to Southeast Texas, a couple of 4 years ago. I was down there. I was working for a couple of different dog kennels, working out of a couple different dog kennels. And I was at the second one near College Station, and I had a bunch of gun dogs to train. And I had a lot of gun dogs to train. And you can't train gun dogs without having gunfire, and you need to use live birds. Oh, that's great. So, Beth, I think I'm getting my emotional anger involved. I'm definitely being firm, maybe even too much. You cannot train an animal when you're angry or frustrated. Emotion is your enemy. Your enemy. When you're training any animal, and especially a dog, because that energy, you're communicating all kinds of things that you don't want to be. Everything needs to be measured. You need to have a protocol. You need to have, it's like I've started to say, it's like paint by number. You just follow the instructions and you do everything the way. So start by working on that. If you're getting upset or angry, it's never the dog. It's never, ever the dog. It's always us. So you got to get rid of that. And one thing I did when I started this business years ago is I started just like smiling when I was working somebody's dog, because I was so, like, I knew what I was doing for training the dogs, but I was so afraid that people wouldn't accept me or wouldn't believe in me or whatever. And one of my very first dogs was this 95-pound pit bull. I'm going back to the Texas story in just a second, but he had some aggression issues, and I was starting to work him with the e-collar, and he came up and he had a head like this, like, okay, I'm exaggerating, but it was a big, thick head, like a giant pit bull. And he put his head in between my legs. And I've since learned that pit bulls and golden retrievers, that's a really common behavior for them. Um, they have a couple other really common behaviors in common. But anyway, I smiled at them and I said, "Oh, this is just normal, you know." And I smiled because I can't get frustrated or angry or um, feel timid or whatever if I have a big smile. So try that. Um, and so going back to Texas, so I put an ad, a little teeny tiny ad in the local rag. And I was looking for somebody who had experience with animals and was interested in training dogs and had a gun, a shotgun, and could actually use it and hit things with it. Because when you're training gun dogs, you have to train with birds. It's my least favorite thing about training gun dogs. I hate that. um, but it's part of the deal. Like you have to train with birds and you have to shoot birds sometimes. And it's really helpful to have somebody um, who can actually hit something with their gun. And down in Texas, every boy has a gun. Everybody has a gun, but especially the men folk. They grow up with guns. As little kids, they have guns. And so two people answered the ad. One of them was a junior at the local high school in Snook, Texas, and the other one was at Texas A&M, and he was a junior at Texas A&M. And his dad was an attorney, and his mom worked in the field of law, and they lived in Houston. He grew up in Houston, whereas the junior in high school lived in Snook, which was right around the corner from where I was. Like you could throw a rock and hit it. And that kid lived on a 40-acre piece of property, and he was in FFA and he was in 4-H, and he raised chickens and goats and cattle and I forget what all. And he wanted to be a veterinarian. I'm sure he's a veterinarian or pretty close to being a veterinarian by now. The kid was amazing. And so the junior in college, when we start really early in the morning, it'd be like 5:30 in the morning, and we'd be gathering up the dogs out of the kennels and putting them on the truck and in the trailer. And I'd say, okay, we need this dog, da 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 da. We need these dogs. Get them in the trailer for me, would you? And the kid in college, it would take him a half an hour to get the dog, and he struggled. And then the junior in high school that had grown up with animals and on the farm and taking them to fairs and doing all this stuff, competitions with all these animals, he just opened up the doors of the kennels and just told the dogs to get in, and they're muddying the water for the dog. The dog's like, "What are you trying to tell me?" Dumb waiver. You just say that this is what you're going to do, and you kind of know how to move your body. And it all starts here. Like everything comes from here and here. And you're not your dog any favor. You know how to move your body. And it all starts here. Like everything comes from here and here. And you're not your dog any favors by worrying about whether they feel bad or you're being too harsh on them. You're not doing any. Okay, that was just Karen said yes. Okay, we can get back that email. See. So again, being with the dog is really important. So I'm going to the wood chips and rocks and the stuff out in the yard. Dog squeak. If you have a squeak type too, be up your attention on you all the time. They should be so bored with you that they're looking for things to do, like eat rocks. Um, and at first, if you're not used to it, it's like it's exhausting when you're not used to it. It's kind of like me trying to start a YouTube live. I've never done it before. I was really spoiled by the Blab thing that they took down 2 years ago, where all you had to do is sign into Twitter and push a button, go to Blab and push a button, and you were on. um, and so I spent more, and you're trying to establish new habits. Just keep putting one foot in front of the other. And remember that if you're getting upset, emotional, any kind of emotion, even being like super giddy and laughing, that's better than any other emotion. That's the best. But it won't serve you well if you're trying to get your dog to do something. Um, your dog will enjoy it. And if you use it right, you get your dog and you haven't had a dog before and you're trying to establish new habits, just keep putting one foot in front of the other. And remember that if you're getting upset, emotional, any kind of emotion, even being like super giddy and laughing, that's better than any other emotion. That's the best. But it won't serve you well if you're trying to get your dog to do something. If you use it right, you can like fall on the ground laughing and let your dog come over and da 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 da. That'll be like a reward. But any other emotion, especially negative emotions, are just puppy. I don't know if it's everybody that has one of Tina's puppies, or if somebody's in here that has a puppy that they got somewhere else. It doesn't matter. Ask me a question and let me answer it. Because all I really have, I've got text from um, okay, that was about bones. So we can talk about bones. Really good, like the soup bones. It cleans their teeth and they get to self gratify and they can chew on bones for hours. If they break off a piece of it goes into chloric acid is so higher than ours that they digest them. It's not going to hurt them. It's fine. Um, and so another thing that you can do, like there was a question from somebody about, I'm afraid to give bones. So like if you give them a chicken hindquarter, um, they will probably eat the bone. I usually start giving chicken hindquarters when they're 4 weeks old, and they will eat everything but the bone. But by the time they're 8 weeks old, they'll be eating the bone, like the whole thing will be gone. Um, and they have the hydrochloric acid to deal with it. It never harms them. But if you're worried, you can start with turkey necks or chicken necks. At this time of year, probably have to go to a meat market to get the turkey necks. But if you buy a whole chicken, they usually have the chicken neck in there, and you can give that to the dog. I had several of them this morning, and I just put them in food, the bowl of food, and they were gone. They're tiny. The chicken necks are tiny. So um, I love it. Beth says that her puppy is bringing the dish in her mouth over and putting it down and waiting for her food to be ready. That's so cute. I'd love if you could get a video of that. Um, she loves to eat our landscape bark and cherry bark on the tree. So we already talked about that. Potty training is going well. So again, with potty training, when in doubt, take them out every hour. They should be able to last longer than an hour in the crate, but if they're fussing, just take them out. And again, use a drag line. And if they poop on the drag line, okay, for a drag line, I made one for Lindsay and Karen that I use for my long lines, and even for in the house, I use climbing rope. I don't go to Lowe's and get garbage rope. I use climbing rope from REI, and I use 8 millimeter. I use the kind that when somebody like falls or whatever, it has a little bit of give. I don't know why. It's just what I've always used. But if you get the 8 millimeter, it feels really good in your hand. If you get bigger than that, much bigger, it'll be too big around to actually like be able to control it very well. And if you get smaller than that, it's going to burn your hands, hurt your hands. But the 8 millimeter is just so nice in your hand. It's just the perfect, and it doesn't slip, and it doesn't burn your hand because it doesn't slip like the nylon ones that you get at the big box pet stores or whatever. Nylon leashes burn your hands, and a lot of times I'll take somebody's dog and they've got that nylon leash, and if the dog is doing a lot of lunging and pulling, it actually cuts into my hands. I hate that. So another good material, I just buy it already has made into leashes, but it's called Biothane, and it's leather like. It feels like leather and it looks like leather, but it's not leather. It doesn't mildew, it doesn't get moldy if it gets wet, and it doesn't slip in the rain, and it's really nice. But if you have a dog that's chewing on the leash, they're kind of expensive. I think they're like $20. So if you have a dog that's chewing on the leash, you don't want that. But again, don't let your dog chew on the leash. Just give them a snap and release and say no, and they'll quit doing it. They'll quit doing it real quick, as if you really mean it and they know that you mean it. If they think it's a game, and this is another reason why you want to have that drag line on them, because dogs, they love to chase and they love to be chased. And if you watch dogs and puppies together, they will make that whole game. You can see the whole thing. You can see what they're thinking. Like one dog will crouch down and be like, I'm going to get you. And then the other dog kind of slows up. And then the dog that's being stalked by the dog who's down runs. And then the other dog goes and tries to catch them. So they love both of those things. And if they're bored, especially, they will try to make a game. When you call them, they'll be like, no, chase me, chase me. And they're just doing it to have fun. They're not doing it to ruin your day or make you late to work. But if you have that drag line on, you can solve the problem, and you can teach them that when you say come, we're not playing games. You need to come, period. Play biting. Again, the two-finger correction. Also, you can take your fingers and again, measured, not out of anger, but measured. No. On their canine teeth with their lips in between. No. Okay. And if the, so my dogs don't really do it because when they're out of their crate, I'm doing specific things with them. I'm playing with them, I'm really engaged, and then they go back in their crate. So they don't really do it. But last week I had to take a dog to the vet down to Ethel, which is near Mossy Rock, and my husband drove. And so I took the little yellow puppy, and she rode on my lap. Probably not the safest thing for her, but I just wanted to have that bonding time. And I had a towel, and she just fell asleep. And when she was awake, I put my finger in her mouth, and she chewed on it a little bit, and I just left my finger in there, and then she got bored, and she just was like, get me out of here. So a lot of times if a dog's really, really trying to bite, which these guys shouldn't be doing that, but I'll put my finger in there, and sometimes I'll put it way back where there's no teeth, and they kind of gag. So if each time they go to play bite you, something like that happens, then they're going to quit really fast. But again, you can't be emotional when you do it. It needs to be measured and calculated and just delivered with no emotion. If they're chasing the kids, then I'm going to ask you, why is the dog chasing the kids? She should either be on a leash, or she should be, or he should be in a crate. They're too young to be out with the kids. And especially if you have little kids, how do you explain all this to a kid? like as adults, it's hard to get. So how do you explain all this to a kid? And I know, we got the puppy because we wanted the kids to love the puppy. Your kids are going to love the puppy and they're going to love the dog, but they're going to love it sooner and deeper if the dog's not chasing them and ripping their clothes and biting them and all that stuff. So you just have to keep kind of a tight lid on everything at the beginning and just do everything correctly. So I don't have the best internet connection out here in Eatonville, so I hope it's not me. Can everybody else hear me? What is the volume like? I know it would be better on my cell phone, but I figured I would need my cell phone. Yeah, exactly. So Beth says, I agree. My job as a parent is to train the dog, not the kid's job. So, and your job as a parent, so my kids are way grown. Thanks, Karen. My kids are way grown. They're in their 30s now. But my job wasn't to be their friend. My job, and I could have done a better job. I wasn't the best parent. I could have done a way better job. Like all of you guys are way better at parenting than I was. If I had known then what I know now about training the dogs, a lot of this I think I would have been a better parent. Not that it's the same, but our job is, especially when they're puppies, like that whole thing, let's let the puppy just wander around the house and he's chasing the kids and biting at their pants legs. And now I'm just so frustrated. If you'll start and do everything right in the beginning, even though it's counterintuitive and it seems like it feels wrong, if you'll just, again, going back to me trying to do a YouTube live tonight, God, it was awful. So if you'll just slug through and get the things done that you need to get done and thread the eye of the needle, on the other side it's going to be so much better. And people have such a hard time because we're so emotional and we're creatures of habit to the point where we just walk around and we don't even know what we're doing. We drive to work and we get to work and we're like, how did I get here? I don't remember even stopping at that light or that light. Like, what happened? So our mind and our bodies go on autopilot. And then when we get the dog, our mind and our bodies still do that, which is why people meditate and they try to do so many exercises to get their brain to stay engaged instead of their mind body. And so to be present is so important. To be present, and it's hard, and it might make you cry because you're so frustrated with yourself, and it's so easy to project that frustration onto the dog. It's not the dog. Your dog is the same as my dog, but we have different results. And thank God, I know I said this to Karen and some of the other people at the training on Saturday, but I say this to people all the time. Thank God I can train dogs because I suck at just about everything else, like totally. But thank God I can train dogs. So I'm not lording it over anybody or trying to say that I'm smarter than anybody. I just know how to train dogs. And a lot of the stuff I know about training dogs, I compare that when I'm trying to learn to do other things. And so you have things that you're really, really good at. And what you need to do is pull what you're good at and pull that confidence and apply it over there. And so you guys are really good at being parents. And there's a lot of correlations. So going back to that whole thing, it's not my job to be my puppy's best friend, even though you got the puppy because you wanted to love her. You're going to love the puppy and the dog so much more the deeper and more training that you do. So especially when people start to work with me on, like, we're using tools as like the electronic collar, and we're gonna start saying, you will get on top of this dog crate, or you will get onto that rock, and you will stay there when I walk away. And people are just like, this is awful. This isn't what I bargained for when I got my dog. Thank you. Thanks for coming, cats. Um, so if you'll just do it anyway and just believe me when I tell you that it's going to be fine, and just do it. Small red bump bites on the inside of our pup's ears. I do not have any idea, but here's what I'll tell you. I got a call today from one of my longtime dog training clients. Her name's Kelly, and she has a poodle, a standard poodle named Ranger. And she called me because when we were working with her dog a couple years ago, he had he was licking his paws and biting at his paws, and he was scratching his ears, and to the point where they were bloody, and his paws were sore, and he had sores on them. And I said, what are you feeding him? And she was feeding him crap, kibble. So we've all had this conversation about food. And I said, first of all, the food you're giving him needs to be grain free. Do not feed your dog any food that has grain in it, not even rice. And get as much away from that food even as possible, and start giving eggs and all that stuff and raw meat. And she did it. And within 2 weeks, he was completely clear. And so she'll contact me on Facebook every once in a while. And today, the dog somehow pulled one of his toenails out. And she wasn't home at the time. The dog was getting in and out of her husband's truck. And she doesn't know what happened exactly, but the toenail was gone and he was kind of bleeding. And she called the vet and she said, what should I do? And the gal answering the phone at the vet is like, well, we recommend that you bring him in. That's what they always say. That's what they're trained by the owner of the company, which is usually the vet, or hopefully it's the vet and not some big corporation. But anyway, whether it is or not, they teach their personnel, don't give veterinary advice, right? But what I taught her, in addition to dog training, is that number one, veterinarians are not trained in nutrition, just like our allopathic physicians are. They get no training. Veterinarians and medical doctors get no training in nutrition. And nutrition is so important to health. So anyway, that's another story, but she called over there about the toenail and was told that. And then she called me to see what I thought. And I said, I would, if it were my dog, I wouldn't take him into the vet yet. He's running around. He doesn't act like he's in any pain. And so I would just wait and see, and just keep an eye on it. And she had cleaned it and she had bandaged it. And I said, why did you bandage it? Like, what is that going to accomplish? Because if you put the bandage on too tight with the tape, it might cut off the circulation a little bit, and it's going to prevent the air from getting in there, the air circulating. So you want the blood circulating and the air flowing around that. And we talked about it a little bit more, so I won't bore you with it. But my point is, going back, Beth, I don't know what those are from. It could be stress related. It could be something that she's eating. But I would keep an eye on it and just watch it for a while. A wait and see approach is what I do. And so I told Kelly the story when we were down in Texas at the first kennel I was at. They had a lake. They called it a lake. Here it would be a pond, but they in Texas call it a lake. It was about 2.5 acres. And I was over there. The kennel wasn't open that day for people to bring dogs. I mean, people could bring their dogs to stay, but it wasn't. Their training part of it wasn't open, so it was kind of a day off. And I took my dogs over to the lake, and we were always going around on the 4-wheelers, right? And the dogs will run alongside. So I thought, I'll just let the dogs run alongside the truck when I'm going back to the house. Big mistake. Ruby got around under the passenger uh, side front wheel, and I didn't see her, and all I heard was this ah! And I slammed on the brake, put the truck in park, and ran over there. And there she was underneath the tire. She couldn't move, and the tire was on top of both of her hind knees. And so I had to get back in the truck and back off of her. And okay, good. So I had to back it off her, and then she yelped again when I did that. And then she got up and she was limping really bad on one of them. And of course, she can't limp on both of them, I don't think. I don't know how you limp on two legs, right? But I was so freaked out. I felt so awful. And I I went over, knocked on the kennel owner's door, and I confessed to him what I had done. And he's like, "Well, don't take her to the vet. Bring her over here and let me look at her." And he says, "You put ice on it. Just put ice on it." So I did. I put ice on her knees like every 15 minutes for a few hours. And then I set my alarm and I got up like every hour going through the night to put ice on her leg for like five minutes or so and then took it off. And I continued that all weekend. And then when it was time to get back to work, I had to only do it before I left for work and then at lunchtime and then a couple times during the evening. And I was very diligent. And you can see Ruby's fine now. She never had any surgery, but there was a treatment and it's still around. And I forget exactly what it was, but it's a non-invasive, like it's not laser. I forget what it is, but anyway, um, thermal something, and it's supposed to be help them heal faster and reduce inflammation and stuff like that. And I called the vet because I wanted to see if they had that, and if I could access it if they did have it, or if they could refer me to somebody. And exactly the same thing. Well, we recommend that you bring the dog in. And I could just picture bringing her in. We're going to pay for an exam, and then they're going to want to run a bunch of tests and do X-rays. And so I always take the wait and see approach. And then Ruby also on her leg, very near that spot, uh, just over the last year, she started getting this bump that was it got to like that, and it was sticking up off of her leg maybe an inch. It kept getting bigger. And I took her into a vet last fall, and I was told that it's like an ingrown hair, like the hair follicle got plugged. And there's a name for it, but it kept getting bigger, and I just wanted to get it off. So I took her to the local vet in Eatonville about 2 months ago and had him cut it off. Well, he cut it off and he saved it in a dish for me to look at. And that's okay with me. Like, I'm not squeamish about stuff like that. So I went in and I started poking my finger in there, and I go, "Great, I don't see anything to be worried about." And he goes, "Well," he said, "you know, it does look a little strange to me, and it could be cancer, and I think we should have her tested." And I looked at him and I'm like, "I'm just gonna wait and see." That's what I do with everything. And the little incision that he made is all healed up, and there's nothing happening. And the first vet, I'm sure, was right. It was like a inflamed, impacted hair follicle, and there's nothing wrong. So just be careful. Okay, and then Beth, if you're still on, I just want to say to you guys that I want to have a meetup with the pups um, sometime in the next, maybe, I don't know, let's give it a month, because right now you guys don't know what you don't know. But I'd like to get together with you guys and just take a look at everything that's happening and what you're doing. And there's no charge. And then just, see if I can give you some pointers. Um, so hopefully that will be helpful. And I'm keeping one of the pups so that I can do some videos of what I'm doing with her. And I just want you to be able to see like what my pup's like compared to what your pup is like, and then just kind of inspire you to, grow a little bit. Another thing, suggestion that I have is the monks of New Skeet. They're real monks. They have a monastery in upstate New York, and in order to pay the bills, they have been raising German Shepherds for decades, many, many decades. And they're championship German Shepherds. And they, their first book was How to Be Your Dog's Best Friend. And then the second book that they put out was The Art of Raising a Puppy. And if you get the latest version of the book, they've updated it. Like way back 25 years ago, they didn't crate the dogs at night. They tied them to the bed. And so they are now crating the dogs. Like they decided that that was a good thing to do. So they've changed a lot of things, but they do really high levels of training. In addition to training the German Shepherds that they raise, they also train. And there's a trainer I think he's in Chicago, named Mark Goldberg, and he goes every year to their monastery and works with them, and puts on seminars over there, and you pay big bucks to go to it. And then just recently, there was a book published by a guy. He's married to the beautiful lady that does are they called Spanx? The things that make you look all like have a bigger butt if you want one. Like I actually bought one of those because I have no butt. And I wore it till I wore it out. Now I don't care anymore. But and they have like, but he's married to that lady, and he himself is like a billionaire many times over, and I forget what he does, but he just wrote a book. He went over to the monks of New Skeet, and he was going to live with them for like I don't know how long. And the first night he was ready to come home, he didn't want to stay because he was too bored. He had no cell phone, no computer, no nothing. And the only thing that he talks about this in his book. I haven't read the book, but I've heard interviews with him. The only thing that was interesting to him was the dogs, and they had him like act as a decoy and do distractions and stuff around the dogs while they were training them. The rest of the time, they meditate, and they're very. For him, it was very boring, and but he wrote a whole book about it, and I'm sure that he got a lot out of it because every one of us would probably benefit from going to a place like that and having to get rid of all of our stuff and just be present. I would love to do it, but I'd also love to be there and see what they're doing with the dogs. But anyway, The Art of Raising a Puppy and How to Be Your Dog's Best Friends by the Monks of New Skeet are great books to get. Another resource is my friend Larry Krohn, Krohn, and he owns Pack Masters Dog Training in Nashville. Awesome. So Karen already has that book. Hopefully it's a newer version of it, not some version that was on their shelf for 25 years. But Larry Krohn, Packmasters Dog Training on YouTube, does a lot of he shows a lot of stuff where he's working with clients, and he gets a lot of really aggressive dogs, and people come from like way states away because he'll do a board and train. He doesn't do it full time. He's I don't think he's FBI, but he's a law enforcement for the US government. And just looking at his attitude when he's making the videos, like it kind of gives you an idea, like dogs just don't mess with him, and people just don't mess with him. Like, so if you can emulate a little bit of Larry, there's another guy, his name is Tom. I forget what his last name is, but he's on YouTube as Upstate Canine. And he Larry trains the way I do. Tom trains exactly the way I do. Um, and his videos are great. Like, he has a camera crew, he has people to help him. Um, and he does really good videos. He's a young guy, but he's great with dogs. And then Tyler Muto, um, Canine Connection in Buffalo, New York. Tyler, I've known Tyler for years. He and I went through one of the same dog training schools back in the day. And he does good videos too. He's on Facebook. So it's the Canine Connection, the letter K, 9 Connection. And he puts a lot of good stuff on Facebook. And he probably has a YouTube channel. I haven't subscribed to it. I don't know if he really spends a lot of time on YouTube. But those are 3 people that I recommend to just kind of follow, and hopefully that'll get you started. There are women too that are really good dog trainers, not to say that there aren't. Oh, another resource, speaking of Ed Frawley, Frawley, Ed Frawley, Leerburg Kennels, Leerb, I think it's either ERG or URG, probably ERG, Leerburg Kennels. And he has a YouTube channel, and if you get on his mailing list, his email list, he sends a lot of good information out. All of the people I'm talking to you about, none of them train retrievers. They all train like Belgian Malinois and German Shepherds. But the reason that came to mind when I was saying that there are women trainers is he has a lady, she's in California, like on the backside near, I believe, Bishop, California, which is a weird place because it's surrounded by federal lands and they can't grow anymore. And it's really hard to buy property there, and it's really kind of remote. And she does a lot of board and trains. And she just recently put together a training package, video type stuff. And I haven't bought it, but if Ed Frawley says the person's good, they're good. So Ed Frawley has Tyler Muto has done some training courses for Leerburg, and I don't think Tom has yet, but I'm sure Tom will, because Tom's really good at what he does with the videos. And I can't remember the lady's name. I'll look it up and let you guys know if you're interested. Okay, we're at about an hour, and I still have to air puppies and get them put to bed. So thank you all so much for coming. If anybody has one last question, let me know. But thanks for being here, and just keep putting one foot in front of the other, and you guys are going to do fine. Okay, so Karen says that Garmin eCollar has a set of training videos on YouTube that my kids are watching. I haven't seen them. Be careful with the manufacturers of e-collars. They're a bunch of inventors, engineers, and a lot of times they don't know anything about training dogs. So what they'll do a lot of times is get a trainer to do it for them. And there are a lot of different ways of using the e-collar. And the way I do it, the protocol I use, is very gentle and very empowering for the dogs. And there's a lot of people out there that train completely and totally different with it, and they use it for punishment. And just be careful. Just take everything they say with a grain of salt. So Karen, if your kids are watching those, I'm going to have to make a point to go over and watch them myself now. because if they're saying things different than what I'm saying, that could be a problem because you don't want to be getting advice from one person and then going over here and getting the opposite advice from the other person. Um, so I'm so do you know, Karen, what the trainer's name is? Anyway, just be careful. Um, if they're a gun dog trainer, be really careful. I'm a gun dog trainer, and I was taught how to use the e-collar way back in the day. And the way gun dog trainers typically use the e-collar is it's a Hail Mary, it's a last ditch, it's a necessary evil, and there's no real protocol. Okay, from Texas. Hillman, Tom Hillman. Tom Hillman's probably okay. But again, Tom Hillman, okay, I'm not going to say anything. We're on a public channel. I don't watch Tom Hillman's videos for reasons that don't have anything to do with dog training. But find out who it is, and I'll try to check out Garmin's website. Garmin is one of the e-collar manufacturers. They bought Tritronics, and so they're one of the e-collar manufacturers that I recommend. They're very expensive. Their products are the same caliber as the e-collar technologies and the Dogtra, but they're more expensive, which is why I don't use them. But they're a good product. So hopefully they have a good trainer. It might be Tom Hillman. Hopefully it's somebody else. Maybe. I mean, he's a good dog trainer, so he could be okay. And he's a retriever trainer. But anyway, I'll have to investigate that. So if you could get me the name, that would be great. Okay, guys, if there's no more questions, I'm going to end the stream. Thank you so much. Let me know if you have any questions. Text me. Bye.